Oh, hey guys, how's it going? Some people asked for a tutorial on how to recreate a physics simulation that I posted a little while ago, and I finally have some time, so I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to show you two ways. One is in Blender. It doesn't require any external add-ons, so it's entirely free and accessible to everyone, but it is slow and hard to tweak and kind of cumbersome. But again, it's free and anyone can do it. The second way is a lot easier, kind of user-friendly and really easy to tweak. However, it does require a paid add-on. So I'll show you both ways and you can decide what works best for you. So they both follow a similar principled approach, and that is having an object that we will shatter. Then those shattered pieces we will simulate with physics, and then that physics simulation we will constrain using constraints. So I just added in a cube here and I scaled it on the X and Y by 0.25. And now this doesn't have to do with the fracture, but we're going to add in two materials. The bottom one, name it inner, and the top one we will name outer. This will just save us a bunch of headache later on, and set them to some contrasty colors so we can see what we're doing later on. Now, as far as fracturing goes, there's kind of three different ways you can do it. You can do it with vertices, particles, or the annotation pencil. I find the particles are kind of just the easiest for generic shatter, so that's the way we're going to go. So we're going to add in a particle system. We're going to give it 150 particles and make sure that it starts and ends on frame 1. Then the source, make sure it's emitting from the volume of your mesh, and now we're good to go. So how we're going to do this is with cell fracture. It comes built into Blender. You just have to go to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, and search for cell fracture, and make sure it's checked. You don't have to download or install anything, just enable it. It comes with Blender by default. So once that's enabled, it gives us a new option under Objects, Quick Effects. We now have cell fracture. So we go over here, and as I said, it's a bit complicated, so we're doing the simplest one of just own particles, but you can do some really cool things with annotation pencil as well as recursive shattering. But we'll keep it simple, own particles, and the only thing we're changing is material, move it over to 1. Now we'll press OK, and it will fracture and generate a bunch of cells in our outliner here. Now before we do anything else, we're going to press M and add all these cells to a new collection named cells. Press OK. You can collapse this collection and just go back to our cube, remove the particle system, and hide it. Now we have a nice shattered cube. That's step 1 complete. The next step is going to be adding simulation to this. So we come over here to cells. We can right click on the collection and press S. That means selected objects. We're going to be doing that a lot. And make sure you have one of them selected as the active. Now if we come down to physics here, we could add rigid body simulation to each and every one of them, but an easier way is to come up here to Objects, Rigid Body, Add Active. Now all of these have a active rigid body, and if we press space, they start falling. So we have to add a rigid body passive to the plane so that it will passively catch all of our simulated parts. Now perfect, except this is a terrible simulation. These are rocking, these are rolling, they're clipping through the ground. It's just not good. We can do better. So how we do that is by coming up here to our cells, make sure you have one selected as the active, and come to sensitivity. Now we want to enable collision margin. Now if we just click it, it looks like it's all good to go, but if you go to any of the other cells, none of these have collision margin enabled. So what you want to do is hold down Alt when you select it, so that it will check mark for all of the selected as well as the active. Now we're going to be doing that a lot, so make sure you hold Alt for any of the parameters we enter. So pressing Alt again, we go to margin, because if we just do it right now, it explodes, which is pretty cool, but not what we're looking for. So hold Alt, click on margin, and go 0.001. Now press enter, and now if we simulate it, we have a much more accurate simulation. Nothing's rolling around, nothing's clipping through the ground, it's just looking good. But one issue that I'm sure you've noticed is that all of these, if you look at the mass, is 1 kilogram, 1 kilogram, 1 kilogram, they all weigh exactly the same. This may not seem like an issue right now, but it will be later, especially if you're doing physically accurate simulations. You want things to weigh the right amount so they interact in realistic ways. So to do that, we can go here, select, we don't have to guess, we can go up to Object, Rigid Body again, and press Calculate Mass. So now this will give us a bunch of different preset options, brass, bronze, gold, iron, there's peanuts if that's what you really want. But we're going to go for something simple, we're just going to go for concrete. And if we select that, now you can see what used to weigh 1 kilogram is now 10.3. 15, 10, 5, 4, through 6. So it will recalculate it based on the mass, or sorry, based on the volume rather, of the material that we selected. So now if we simulate it again, we can see it doesn't really change much, but some of these bigger ones are actually able to push the smaller ones out of the way because they weigh more than them. So perfect. Now that we have a nice simulation, we don't want to start right away. We want to start, frame 70 or 80, or more correctly, we want to start when something gets smashed through it, like an actual simulation of breaking things would. So we can do that by coming under Dynamics, holding Alt, click Deactivated, Start Deactivated. Now if we press play, nothing happens until we come over and we reactivate them by unchecking this. Now right there, frame 155 or whatever, it reactivated. Click it again, boom, reactivated. And you can keyframe that and have control over that, but I think an even better way of doing that is coming over here, just in the scene collection, adding in a new mesh. We're going to scale it by 0.25 and move it up here, making sure to apply the scale again, and turning this into a rigid body as well. Rigid body set to about 100 kilograms. And now when this active rigid body hits our deactivated rigid bodies, it will reactivate them and start the simulation. So perfect. Now when the meteor hits or the wrecking ball crashes through, we have an accurate simulation. The only issue is it's not actually that accurate. As we can see here, as soon as a ball hits, everything starts breaking, even the stuff down here. When in reality, this wouldn't be affected by this stuff up here. It would slightly, but not nearly as much. So this is where our step 3, the constraints, come in. So to add constraints, we come up here to our cells, right click it, make sure you have one of them selected as the actual active, and come up, Object, Rigid Body, Connect. And now this will add a bunch of rigid body constraints that now, if we simulate, kind of hold it all together, but not in the way that we want. So if we come and we select all of these here, make sure one is actually selected, there's an option for breakable. So holding Alt, select breakable, come up and resimulate yet again. And now we get something that looks terrible. We have random floating pieces here. Stuff isn't actually breaking off right. This looks terrible. It's even worse than what it was before. This is because Blender has a really stupid way of using default options for these constraints. So we're just going to delete them and we're going to add them back in a better way. Select all the cells again. Make sure you have one selected as active. Same thing, Object, Rigid Body, Connect. But make sure you change it from Connect Rigid Bodies, from selected to active. Make sure it's chain by distance. This will redistribute all of these connections to be not based on the active and selected, but based on the location and distance between each cell. So now if we come in here and we press play, do the same thing, it won't break because we have to convert all these to breakable, and we can just move them into a new collection named connections, just so, just like our cells, it's easier to grab all of them at once. So we'll select all of them, make sure one is actually the active, holding Alt, select breakable, and then going back here, now we smash, and that looks really good. We got a nice thing. This is broken into chunks. If we look back here, see that all stayed as a chunk. This actually broke apart as one big chunk here, and then broke again once it hit the ground. So just much more accurate simulations here. Smash, break, and this already, honestly, by itself is a really nice looking simulation. I like it, but you get to tweak these. This is where the creativity and the fun comes in now. You can take these constraints, holding Alt, change the threshold to something like, 20, and then now if we press play, it's only able to break the top part because the constraints are much stronger. The glue holding all the pieces together is stronger. So we can come up here and we can change the mass of this to, oopsie, not 20, 200, and now we'll see what this is. So there we go. By tweaking these, you have more control and you can customize whatever you'd like about these simulations. So now that you've got a decent looking, good simulation, I personally love this right here. You can start messing with the materials. We come in here and we select this bad boy right here, And we can make it metallic, make it slightly more rough, make it a bit darker. And then the material I use for the insides, I use a glowing material. Super simple, literally just object info, take the location, plug into the emission color, change the strength up to about 5. Now we can come in here, we'll just drop the world light here down to something darker. And even this light will, there you go. So now we've got something cool. We shatter this. Cool glowing interior. Absolutely perfect. And on the outside, if this is what you're going for, this looks cool in and of itself. But if you want a nice clean exterior, this is where the default cube comes back. So if we have this here, I'm just going to hide these connections because we don't need them anymore. If you take this, see it's got some Z fighting with the underside. If you scale it by something super small, like 1.005, barely any bigger, and apply that scale, now you've got the same simulation, but it's got a perfectly clean exterior. And there's a bunch of ways of getting or hiding this, but kind of the simplest is honestly just moving out of the way. So go to the frame it cracks, go 1 frame back, insert a location keyframe, 1 frame forward, hide it underneath your plane, insert another location, and now you've got pretty much like a flawless animation in my opinion. Smash that. Looks beautiful. So there you go. I'm not going to show you, this took us about 10 minutes to make this simulation. We're going to make the other one in probably about 3 minutes. So we're going to take all of this stuff here, everything, and just move it over to the left a little bit, right there. So same simulation, same everything, except for this, but that's all right. We don't need that. So now we're going to do the other simulation. We're going to add in a cube, raise it up, scale by 0.25, exactly the same here. Now the difference is we are just going to go in and we're going to be using RBD Lab for our paid add-on here. So we're going to scatter our particles. We'll set it to 150, just like the other one, and we are going to fracture it. Now that took almost no time at all, instantaneous. Now if we look at it, it's also much cleaner shatter lines, in my opinion. Now we just go down here and we want to add in a rigid body, and now there's our simulation, instantaneous. It took us 3 clicks, and we're now almost at the same point. And you can see it's also already put it into a nice collection for us. It has put up the materials for us, and it is already done, if we go to the physics, it's already done our collision margin for us. So again, 3 clicks, and we're already 90% of the way there. So we'll just go up here, press deactivated, update it. Now we're in the same situation. We will add in, actually, we'll just duplicate this. We'll move it over to there. And now we have the exact same simulation. Boom. Perfect. That is glitching out heavily now, but we won't worry about that too much. It's probably because I moved it without moving the connections. Yep, that's why. We'll move all these. So now that we've moved this ball over, now we can simulate it. We have the exact same simulation, except this one doesn't have constraints. So how do we add constraints? Super easily. We go over here. We've already added ground, so we don't care about that. We can just come to constraints. We'll set it, I think we have this one set to 20 on this side over here. So we'll do that. We'll set it to 20, add in the constraint, press play. Boom, almost the exact same simulation here. This one's a bit stronger, so we're actually going to lower this to maybe about 15. Update, actually maybe even lower, 12.5. Update, simulate, crashes, that's still too much. All right, we'll go 10. Update. And you can see how much easier it is to tweak with this one. Boom. That's a great looking simulation right there. This is going to fall over. Oh, beautiful. I love that. And I'll play back in real speed. That looks great. I love that. And now you can just, and you can see the constraints here as well. If you press hide constraint, unhide them. But again, that took us 3 minutes. Now we can come in here, selecting these, change the materials. We'll make this one metallic as well, slightly rough. Come to our inner material, same thing. We'll just add in a, whoopsies. object info node, location to emission color, strength to 5, come here, and now we've got two nice looking simulations. Beautiful. Look at that. So, yeah, if you're doing a lot of rigid body simulations, I would recommend RBD Lab. There's a lot more features in here that I didn't show, like, for instance, being able to animate kinematics, being able to do the glue strength and make it breakable. Super easy, keyframeable. They've also got more physics things, like, for instance, debris particles or dust particles are literally just a click away. It's super easy, super simple. And not those can't be done with default Blender. It's just how much work do you want to do putting in with the simulations and the particle simulations. So if you're doing a whole bunch, I honestly recommend using RBD Labs. But again, it is a paid add-on. I know a lot of people don't like to pay for Blender add-ons. So you can do it entirely for free inside of Blender and get really good results. I personally like this one better. This simulation turned out a lot cooler. This one, I find the constraints are a lot harder. But, you know, it's still pretty cool. Anyways, I hope that helps. I hope I didn't forget anything this time. I literally recorded this probably 80 plus times now. I've lost my voice. This has been ridiculous. But I wanted to cover every single thing I could here. And if you have any more questions, or if you want to see more in depth, like seeing the annotation pencil or the recursion, which again, this RBD Lab has as well. It's super easy. You can paint as well, so you can restrict it to certain areas. All these constraints, again, it automatically disables them and puts them into a collection for us. It just cleans up a lot of the nitty-gritty, annoying, dirty work. But yeah, I hope I covered everything. If you have more questions, or if you want to see a more in-depth review, or how you can sort of contribute these into more simulations, I'd love to do a video on that. And I did have sound design on the one that I posted. I won't be showing how to do that because this is already like an over 15-minute long video. So yeah, let me know if you want to see anything else. Thank you very much for watching. I have some more tutorials planned, and I hope they don't take nearly as long as this one did. So yeah, thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed it.